Welcome to Lantern's Edge, Night Watch, the show where we sniff out the truth hiding in the shadows of the world's darkest legends.
2 dogs, 1 lantern, and a forest full of things you probably don't want to meet alone after midnight. I'm Louie, the one who hears those branches snapping just a little too close.
And I'm Bo, your skeptical folklore guide. I love a good scare, but I also love asking, okay, where did this story really come from?
Tonight, we're heading north, deep into the frozen forests where hunger has teeth and the wind carries a name. Wendigo.
Grab a blanket, pull your headphones tight. You're gonna feel that temperature drop.
You're alone in the winter woods. Snow up to your knees, sky the color of old bone. The trail you were following? Gone under fresh drifts. Your breath comes out in clouds, and each one feels smaller than the last. Your stomach growls. It's been hours since you ate. You tell yourself you're fine, until you hear something else growl back. You stop. The trees are bare, skeletal fingers reaching for the sky. Then, from somewhere deep in the dark, a voice. Not loud, not clear, just your name dragged out like it's frozen on someone's tongue. You turn, but there's nothing. Only a shape between the trunks, too tall, too thin, limbs like broken branches, eyes that don't shine but swallow what little light is left. Somewhere inside you, an old warning rises. Don't listen, don't follow, don't give in. But the hunger whispers back.
All right, let's pull back from the edge of the tree line before we all freeze. So, Wendigo, what are we actually talking about here? In a lot of pop culture, it's that tall, antlered deer skull thing from horror games and movies. Creepy? Sure. Accurate to the original stories? Not really.
Right. In the original Algonquian traditions, Ojibwe, Cree, Innu, and others, the Wendigo isn't just a cool monster design. It's a spirit of hunger, winter, and greed. Something that shows up when people turn on each other to survive the cold, especially when food runs out.
Think less big bad wolf, more what happens when you let your worst impulses take over. The Wendigo is often described as once human, someone who resorted to cannibalism or extreme selfishness, twisted into a gaunt, ice-thin creature that can never be full again.
Endless appetite, endless winter. Sometimes it's a possessing spirit, sometimes a physical being. But the key idea is the same. You give in to that kind of hunger. You stop being you. That's when the Wendigo moves in.
So for this episode, we're treating the Wendigo as more than a jump scare. It's a warning about what happens when survival and selfishness go too far.
And that warning comes from real people who actually faced starvation in sub-zero forests with no grocery store at the end of the trail.
Before we go deeper, quick ground rule. These stories come from living indigenous cultures, not just spooky content. So we're going to be careful with how we talk about them.
In Algonquian teachings, Wendigo stories do a lot of work. They reinforce taboos against cannibalism, sure, but also against hoarding, abandoning community, and letting greed tear apart the group.
It's like a moral alarm system. You break the rules that protect everyone and boom, you're not just a jerk. You're becoming something that doesn't belong to the human campfire anymore.
Descriptions vary, but there's a pattern. Gaunt, emaciated body, skin pulled tight over bones, sometimes lips or fingers chewed away from hunger, heart made of ice, literally or metaphorically.
Almost the opposite of a nice, full, well-fed human. This is what starvation and greed look like when you turn them into a person-shaped warning label.
There's also the idea that the Wendigo grows every time it eats. So it's always bigger, always emptier. Hunger that scales with every bad decision.
And it's tied to winter. Long, dark, dangerous winters where the line between living and dying is razor thin. You hear this legend in places where that cold is not a vibe. It's life or death.
So when you hear someone casually toss Wendigo onto any forest monster with antlers, you're seeing a deep, complex teaching get flattened into a costume. That's why a lot of indigenous people are not thrilled with how horror media plays with it.
Our job here? Remember, there are real communities behind this story. We can enjoy the creepy edges, but we keep that respect front and center. Now let's wade into the part where folklore, psychology, and true crime kind of collide. You'll sometimes hear Wendigo psychosis thrown around. That's not a superhero power, y'all. It's a term Western psychiatrists use to describe a supposed condition where someone believed they were turning into a Wendigo and might harm others.
One of the most cited cases is Swift Runner, a Cree man in the late 1800s who killed and ate his family during a severe winter, even though there was a trading post relatively close by. Some accounts say he claimed a Wendigo spirit drove him to it.
We're not going to dwell on the gory details. That's not our lane. But those events got wrapped in the Wendigo framework, a way for the community to understand something horrific through the lens of a known spiritual danger.
Over time, some non-Indigenous doctors tried to classify Wendigo psychosis as a formal mental illness, but that's been heavily criticized. It risks pathologizing Indigenous beliefs instead of understanding them on their own terms.
So where does that leave us? We've got real cases of starvation and violence in brutal winters, a cultural framework that says this is what happens when the Wendigo of greed takes over, and then outside observers trying to squeeze that into Western diagnostic boxes.
And layered on top of that, you get modern Wendigo sightings stories. Glowing eyes in the trees, emaciated figures on the side of the road, weird sounds in the frozen bush. Websites and videos collect these like trading cards.
Some of those accounts are clearly internet creepypasta. Others, people absolutely convinced they met something wrong in the dark. And once your brain knows the name Wendigo, every shadow in a winter forest has sharper teeth.
Is that a spirit, a story, or panic wearing a snow-white mask? Depends who you ask.
Okay, let's talk about the elephant, or the deer skull, in the room. Most modern Wendigo designs in games and movies have antlers, a bony skull for a head, and a kind of forest god aesthetic. Cool? Yeah. Traditional? Not really.
That image comes from a mashup of influences: European horned gods, demon art, and horror concept design. In many Algonquian accounts, the Wendigo is more human-shaped but twisted, tall, skeletal, icy, sometimes with glowing or burning eyes.
And once that antler look hit mainstream, comics, movies, certain games, it spread like wildfire. Now, if you show someone a gaunt deer skull monster and whisper, Wendigo, they know exactly what you're going for, even if it's not true to the source.
There's also the issue of misrepresentation. Scholars and Indigenous voices have been pointing out that treating the Wendigo as just a random forest demon erases its role as a moral story about colonialism, greed, and environmental destruction.
Yeah, some modern critics use Wendigo as a metaphor for things like unchecked capitalism, always eating, never satisfied, destroying communities and land. The legend evolves, but that core theme of hunger and taking too much stays.
So if you're a creator, and hey, Lantern's Edge absolutely is, there's a responsibility to at least know the difference between cool monster skin and deep cultural symbol.
We can still enjoy the spooky stuff, just maybe don't slap antlers on everything and call it done. All right, Louie, time to bring this gaunt winter spirit into the glow of the lantern test. You know the rules. We each answer 2 questions. What do you think the Wendigo really is? Why does this legend deserve a place around the campfire? You're up first.
To me, the Wendigo is first and foremost a warning story that turned into a spiritual presence. It's the shape fear takes when you've seen what starvation and isolation do to people. Not just a monster, but a way to talk about how you lose yourself when you put your own survival above everyone else. Around the campfire, I think it belongs because it forces us to ask, what would I do if things got that bad? And do I recognize any Wendigo-like hunger in my own life? Greed, selfishness, never feeling like I have enough.
Whew! That hits harder than a jump scare.
Your turn, Bo.
All right, I think the Wendigo is a mix of 3 things. Real historical trauma from harsh winters, a spiritual symbol communities use to name that trauma, and then a modern horror icon that sometimes forgets where it came from. Do I think there's some 9-foot ice demon stalking every pine forest up north? Personally, no. Do I think there's a kind of Wendigo energy anytime a person, a company, a system just keeps taking and never giving back? Absolutely. And as a campfire story, it's perfect. It's not just boo monster. It's, are you feeding something inside you that might eat you back?
And that's the part that follows you home.
So, listeners, your turn under the lantern. Do you see the Wendigo as a real spirit in the woods, a story about the worst in us, or both at the same time? Drop your thoughts and your cold weather horror stories in the comments.
If you enjoyed wandering through the snow with us tonight, make sure you follow Lantern's Edge, Night Watch, and share this episode with someone who loves a good shiver down the spine. Next time, we step away from the snow and into the sky. Winged omens, glowing eyes, and a bridge that didn't hold.
Yeah, West Virginia, we're looking at you.
Until then, stay curious, stay in the light.